Okay, so as far as navigation in Windows Explorer, it's pretty simple. Generally, you can left click or I'm sorry, double click on items on the left pane. Okay, and this is known as the navigation pane. That'll allow you to drill down into different subfolders. Okay, you can also, you can also click on the icons on the right too. So, for instance, I could either click here and then expand each folders, go into each of these and see which one I wanted to do. So that's an option there. Or if I'm back on computer, I can just double click here and then do it the same way. Okay, so I've got different ways that I can actually navigate and move through. Okay, so what we'll look at in our next slide is the fact, or a couple slides, the fact that we can also use these back buttons and forward buttons. Okay, so these will allow us to navigate back and forth through our Windows Explorer. Okay, plus starting in Windows 7, they came out with this in the address bar, this nice little feature. Okay, so if you click here in the address bar, it actually gives you the full path. Okay, so I'm at C, Program Files, x86, and Adobe. Okay, now if I click somewhere in here, back in here, then basically I see the layout of where I'm at. Now, used to, if I just if I started drilling down and I went into these folders, well, see, I'm pretty deep in that path. But let's say that I've decided, no, I don't want to, I'm not supposed to be in Adobe, I'm supposed to be in Microsoft or something. Well, back in Windows XP, you had to sit there and go back, and then just keep on going. Well, in Windows 7, you don't have to do that. Okay, you can actually go back. Okay, I know I can get to Microsoft starting at Program Files. So I click on this arrow. It's going to give me every folder that's listed in that Program Files. So that's why I wanted to go to Microsoft Office, and then from there I wanted to go here and here, so on and so forth. Okay, so I can literally jump, and I can do that anywhere I see this arrow. I can click on C. And let's say instead of x86 Program Files, I'm supposed to be in this Program Files. I can then jump there. So it allows us to be able to jump back and forth that much easier when we're maneuvering and manipulating these files and folders. Okay, so in addition to the the moving around, stuff like that, there are those instances where you might want to customize your headings. Okay, and that can be done by just right-clicking, or I'm sorry, just clicking right-clicking up here in the menu, and then you'll see this option come up. Okay, and that basically will allow you to select any column that you see fit. Okay, so you do have that option. Okay, you also have in the top right-hand corner, you'll see this search box. Okay, so by default, it's going to search in whatever folder you're currently in. Now, you can choose to search everything on the C drive, so it'll go all the way back to that root if you need to. Okay, so that's an option as well. Okay, so here's the option I was telling you about where you could jump back and forth. Okay, so the last few things are going to be copying, cutting, pasting, that kind of stuff. So I'll also show you all this by doing it through example. Okay, so basically, for creating a folder or a file, you bring up your Windows Explorer, you find out where you want to put it. I'm going to put mine in the C drive. So in Windows 7, there's a couple different options. You can either right-click here, go to New, and select Folder. Okay, now notice, anytime you create a new folder or a new file, it's going to already have it highlighted. Okay, so that way you can come in here and name it whatever you want. Okay, so test folder, you press enter and you're done. Okay, you can also create a folder by coming up here and clicking new folder. Okay, test folder 1. You already have one of those. I did. Okay, so I can go in here and rename it. Okay, so it does that automatically. So those are two different ways that you can go in and create a folder. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, in Windows 8, you can also do the same thing by, on the home ribbon, just clicking New Folder. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward here. So there's the New Folder option. It does the exact same thing where it's going to highlight it to allow you to do the name change. So it gives you that little versatility. Okay, so creating a file can basically be done in a very similar manner if you want to. If you want to use the File Explorer method, then you can literally just come in here to whatever folder you want to create the file, right-click, select New, and then choose the file that you want. Now notice I've got a few options here, but this is by no means an exhaustive list of the different programs I have installed. Okay, so let's say I want to create a Word document. Okay, we'll just call this test file. Now again, notice when I created that, it automatically highlighted it so I could rename it as well. But now if I open up this Word document, notice it's completely empty. So there's nothing in there, it just created the file itself. So that's one method. Another method would actually be to use the particular application that you're dealing with whenever you want to create that file. So if you want to create it in Excel, then you can actually open up Excel and create the file itself. So that's probably the most popular method of doing that. Okay, copy can be done a couple different ways. You can right-click on the file, select Copy from the shortcut menu, and then click in the folder you want it to go to, right-click and select Paste. Or you can use the keyboard shortcuts. Okay, that would be the Control-C for copy, Control-V as in Victor for paste. Okay, so those are two keyboard shortcuts. And as you can see, there's also an alternative way for copy or move where you can actually drag and drop items to a new location. Okay, so if you want to manually copy something, you have to hold down the Control key whenever you're dragging it, and it'll copy that. By default, whenever you are moving something from the one drive or one partition to another, it's going to go ahead and move it. If you were moving it from your C drive to an external drive, it's going to copy it by default. So keep that in mind. Okay, so you can also right-click on any file or folder, select the rename, which I did previously when I actually messed up and realized that I had two folders of the same name. I can just right-click, select rename, and then let's say I want to name this one. Okay, so it's just that simple. Deleting a file or folder is done exactly the same way. Okay, you can just right-click on the item and select Delete from the shortcut menu, or you can just select the item by left-clicking on it and then pressing the Delete button on your keyboard. So those are two different options for you. Okay, there's also different ways to select multiple items if you need to. Okay, for instance, if I go in here and let me find a location where I've got several different, there we go. Okay, and that's one thing we'll talk about this as well as in a second. So, but essentially, if you want to select multiple items, if they're non-adjacent, meaning they're not next to each other, then you can select one, press the Control key on your keyboard, and then sit there and select any other ones that you want. And notice it keeps them all highlighted. Now, if they're adjacent, all you have to do is select the first one, go down to the last one you want, press the Shift key on your keyboard, and select that last one. Okay, so those are two different ways that you can select those items. Now, one thing to keep in mind on Windows is, like it mentions down here at the bottom, any files that you delete off of your C drive in Windows will not be gone automatically. Okay, they will be placed into the recycle bin. Okay, so once you clean that recycle bin, then they'll be gone. But a lot of users don't realize this, so they may have a recycle bin that hasn't been cleaned out for 6, 8 months or 2 years or something like that. So it can definitely start to eat up a lot of space. So that's something you need to kind of make your users aware of. Okay, so one thing that we'll touch on real quick is the fact that we have these different views in File Explorer. Okay, so you see here you got details, which will keep all the columns up here, give you the most information. Okay, you've got tiles, which is still gives you some information but breaks it down a little bit as far as the view. Content, okay, not as much information. List, which is strictly just the icon and file name, and then you get into icons. You got small, and then you start getting into, you know, visually impaired and legally blind. Okay, so you know, it depends on what you prefer. I generally, as a rule of thumb, keep it on details just because it gives me the most information. Okay, so last but not least for this section deals with creating a shortcut. Okay, so as this is showing you right here, if you want to create a shortcut, it's as simple as right-clicking on the application or the file and then going down and selecting Create Shortcut. When you do that, it's going to place the shortcut in that same folder. So right here what would happen is you'd have a notepad shortcut that would pop up right here. Then you could copy or move that wherever you see fit. Okay, now you'll know that's a shortcut by having a little arrow in the bottom right-hand corner of the icon. Okay, that's how you'll know it's a shortcut. Alright, so that's it for this section. We'll pick up with the other tools with the next part of the Chapter 7 lecture. Alright, thanks.